Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Sanghang saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi. Tisaranang kamanang nititang amapante. Panatipata verapmani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adina dana verapmani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara verapmani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada verapmani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sura meraya majapamadhatana verapmani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Imani panca sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani panca sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani panca sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani panca sikkhapadani silena bhoga sampada. Silena nibbutiṃ yanti tasma silaṃ visodhaye. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's lovely to see so many of you here. And I'd like to thank the organizers and all the volunteers who made this weekend possible. For those of you I haven't met before, my name's Bhante Rakkhita Salmon. I'm originally from the United Kingdom, although I've spent much of my adult life living and traveling in Asia. I first trained as a monk in Chiang Mai, Thailand, back in the late 1980s. And later, in 2010, I was ordained here in Malaysia at Buddhist Mahavihara in Brickfields. So, although I come from Britain, Malaysia has become a place that's become part of my monastic life for many years, and it's always a real pleasure to return. In between ordinations, I lived a lay life and worked across a range of different fields: art and design, decorating, music, counseling and therapy, and plenty of other things along the way. Looking back, I'm grateful for that because it showed me the kinds of needs and pressures people live with. So my role here isn't to analyze anyone, but to offer some ways of looking so that we might recognize ourselves and feel a bit more at ease. Over the years, I've found that the Buddha's teachings became most meaningful when they are connected with ordinary life. So during this weekend, you won't need any special knowledge of Buddhism. You won't certainly need to memorize Pali words. My aim is to simply take these ancient teachings and translate them into everyday experience. Our relationships, our work, our families, our anxieties, our hopes, and the little habits that quietly shape our lives. We'll be sharing 5 talks together over the course of the weekend. Although each talk stands on its own, they also fit together like chapters in a journey. We'll begin by looking at conflict and why we become entangled in it. From there, we'll explore how the mind creates suffering, how we become trapped by identity, habit, and finally, how great a freedom and peace can become possible, not through believing anything new, but through seeing our experience a little more clearly. Over the weekend, we won't only be listening. At a few points, we'll do some simple activities together, just to explore things through experience, not just words. After lunch today, I'll introduce a very gentle form of art-based reflection. You don't need any drawing skills at all. The only qualification is that you are human. It's just a way of noticing our experience in a different medium. One thing I'd encourage you to do is simply to listen with an open and curious mind. You don't have to agree with everything I say. In Buddhism, you're not asked to believe first and investigate later. You're encouraged to look, to reflect, and to see what proves true in our own experience. So with that in mind, let's begin our first session together. And I've included Mandarin subtitles, just in case. Let me tell you about Daniel. So I met him in 2022 in Perth, Australia. It was after a weekday evening session. Not a huge event, just 20 odd people in a hired community hall above a yoga studio. He waited until most people had left. The polite ones always do. She was 26, soft-spoken, iron shirt, that slightly careful way of speaking you see in people who don't want to waste your time. So we ended up walking down to a little cafe on Beaufort Street. Nothing fancy. He ordered black coffee, but he didn't touch it for the first 5 minutes. And then he said, "Bhante, nothing's wrong, but something feels off." That's usually how it starts with coffee shop counseling. He was working in IT support, stable job, regular hours, paid on time. He wasn't in crisis, no debt collectors, no disasters. But then he mentioned a classmate, promotion at a tech firm in Singapore, another friend, now senior consultant in his email signature. Someone else got engaged, someone else buying an apartment, that kind of thing. He'd laughed when he said it, but it was that tight kind of laugh. It's not that I want what they have, he said. It's just I feel like I'm falling behind. And I noticed something interesting. He didn't describe jealousy. He described acceleration, as if everyone else had quietly stepped on one of those moving walkways at the airport and was going way off ahead. He was still left on the carpet. When he went home to Malaysia, Chinese New Year, it intensified. Uncles asking polite questions, cousins comparing salaries, aunties calculating timelines, all very friendly, all very normal. But in those rooms, success had a face. A seat at the round table. A certain car parked outside. It wasn't abstract. It was in the relations between people. Then when he moved to Australia, and here's what he said surprised him. In Malaysia, it was people I knew. Here, it's everyone. That's scrolling LinkedIn, reading headlines, housing prices, startup founders. It was always someone ahead, someone faster, someone scaling something. He said, it's like there's no finish line. There's just more and more runners. And the comparison wasn't loud, it was subtle. Half-second pause when someone mentioned their job. A slight tightening in his chest when he updated his own profile. So that's, in Pali, Māna, some kind of conceit or self-measuring, pride. I'm too small, I'm too big in everyday clothes. It's not arrogance, it's not superiority, it's just measuring. What shifted for him wasn't dramatic. There wasn't some lightning insight at the cafe table. I didn't give him a clever line. I mostly listened. But a few months later, he wrote to me. I've stopped checking so much, he said. I've stopped checking who moves, who upgraded, who announced. He started focusing on what was actually in front of him, the ticket he was solving, the project he was building, the gym session he had planned, the dinner he was cooking. Strange thing, he wrote, when I just do the next thing in front of me, I don't feel behind. That's it. He didn't conquer comparison. He didn't outgrow ambition. He just stopped feeding the measuring. When the measuring quietened, something steadier appeared. Not confidence, not triumph, just enoughness. And that's where the heat cools. Not because he won, because he stopped racing ghosts. Oh yeah, let me tell you about Lee Wen. I first met her in 2019 in Penang, actually. It was one of those humid afternoons near Pulau Tukas Market. I'd gone down for a kopi-o. I was still drinking coffee then. And she was there with a friend of mine, her cousin, I think. She had just moved back from KL, not long before that. She was 26, working in a small logistics firm, admin side. Nothing glamorous, spreadsheets, invoices, phone calls. She told me she was the reliable one in the office. If something needed doing, they gave it to her. Not proudly, just factually. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, and somewhere between the second coffee and the rain starting outside, she said something that stuck with me. Bhante, she said, I'm doing everything right. Why does life still feel stressful and tight? She was renting a small apartment, 4th floor, no lift. The landlord had just increased the rent. Electricity bill higher than expected. Her car insurance renewal came in that week. Nothing outrageous, just steady. She told me, I thought if I worked hard, I would feel secure by now. And that word secure, I remember her really being about that. And then she said something even more interesting. When my bank balance drops, I feel smaller. That was her phrase, smaller. If there was less money in your account, she didn't just worry about rent. She questioned herself. Maybe I'm not progressing. Maybe I'm behind. Maybe I should be earning more by now. She once said, if I earn more, I'll feel more stable. But what she meant was, if I earn more, I'll feel more solid as a person. Now, she grew up in a fairly typical Malaysian Chinese family in Butterworth. Father ran a hardware shop. Mother did the accounts. From young, she'd been told, just so gently, not harshly, you must be steady, steady job, steady income. Don't take silly risks. She told me about her aunties in Chinese New Year. The questions weren't, are you happy? They were, work stable or not? Can save or not? Got bonus or not? Even if you weren't earning much, what mattered was, could the family rely on you? Could you contribute something when needed? That's how responsibility was measured. Then she moved to Melbourne, Australia, for a couple of years. And that was when the tone shifted. She said, over there, nobody cares if you help the family. They just care if you stand on your own. Rent was high, wages were high, expectations were high, and she felt it. The pressure wasn't about contributing to parents anymore. It was about surviving independently. Can I afford this suburb? Should I move further out? Why is everyone else buying apartments? She laughed and said, everyone looks so stable on Instagram. But when we talked longer, it wasn't Instagram she was worried about. It was that quiet equation in our mind. More income equals more worth, more value. That was the part that began to shift. Not suddenly, not with a big realization. That was the beginning of steadiness for her. I remember the way she said it. Not triumphant, not defeated, just clearer, like someone who'd finally put down a heavy bag she didn't realize she'd been carrying. She laughed a little when she said, the numbers are still the numbers, she told me. Rent's still rent. Groceries are still ridiculous. But then she added afterwards, almost as an afterthought, but at least they're not me anymore. That was the shift. Her pay didn't suddenly double. The bills didn't apologize and shrink, but the edge went out of them. She still worked hard. She still cared. She still wanted to build something. But she wasn't grading her existence every time she checked her balance. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, that's maturity. It's not giving up. It's just a quieter relationship with the whole thing. It's not indifference. Because sometimes stability doesn't arrive when the income goes up. Sometimes it arrives when we stop asking the money to tell you who you are. When that happens, even if the figures stay the same, something inside feels less stressed and crowded. That's a very ordinary kind of freedom, but it's very real. Yeah. I met Ming in 2021 in Ipoh of all places. I was there for a small weekend program, and he came up after the talk. Mid-40s, quiet, well-dressed. The sort of man who looks dependable even before he speaks. We sat outside Kopitiam the next morning. Teh tarik, plastic chairs, ceiling fan that made more noise than breeze. He said, half smiling, Bhante, you know my marriage, I think I've run out of conversation with my wife. That was how he put it. He'd been married nearly 20 years, 2 teenage children. He managed operations for a medium-sized manufacturing company in Penang. Left home 7:15 every morning, home around 7:30 at night. From the outside, like nothing was wrong. There's no scandal, no explosions, no crisis. He said, we don't fight. I don't know, maybe that's the problem. He described to me evenings at home, dinner, television on, discussion about school fees, petrol prices, whether the washing machine needed replacing. And then, don't know, both of them scrolling on their phones. He said, we talk about the weather more passionately than we talk about us, he said. Then he laughed, but not entirely joking. What I noticed was not anger, it was tiredness. He told me that when irritation came up, he just let it pass, not because he thought he was wise, but because he was exhausted. It's easier to say nothing, he said. Less trouble. Over time, he found himself nodding instead of responding, agreeing instead of engaging, staying late at work some evenings, not because he had to, but because the warehouse felt simpler than the dining table. He once said to me, we've become very polite roommates. Now, in the world that he grew up in, small town Perak, fairly traditional family, marriage wasn't talked about in terms of happiness. It was talked about in terms of staying, enduring, maintaining. His parents never discussed emotional fulfillment. They discussed responsibility. My father never once asked my mother if she felt heard, he said. They just stayed married. Then he looked at me and said, over here, where he goes, everyone talks about communication workshops. He wasn't mocking it. He just felt caught between two frames. In one world, you endured quietly. In another, you're expected to keep the relationship alive, expressive, emotionally satisfying. Neither felt entirely wrong to him. Neither felt easy. But the heat did rise when he emitted something softer. Sometimes I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, he said. I'm not unhappy. I'm just flat. That's how I feel. And then after a pause, I don't want to leave. I just don't know how to stay properly. That was the honest part. There wasn't a dramatic turning point. No kind of grand confrontation at the kitchen table. What shifted was smaller. He told me later that he decided to do one simple thing. Stay in the conversation 10 minutes longer. Ask one real question before retreating. So that sit at the table without the television on, even if the silence felt awkward. He stopped measuring the relationship against how it was supposed to feel. He stopped asking, is this exciting enough? Is this meaningful enough? He started asking, can I remain present here, even if it's ordinary? Patience entered quietly, not resignation, not indifference, just less pressure to fix everything immediately. He said to me once, when I stopped trying to make it feel alive, it started breathing again. That was the shift. Not fireworks, not transformation, just steadiness. Sometimes relationships don't need to be improved. Sometimes they need room. Sometimes staying without any tricks, without constant evaluation, is its own quiet form of care. Cheryl Tan is also in her 40s. She's 45. She's still competent, still capable. But the world around her has begun to speak in a slightly different language. New voices, new platforms, younger faces arriving with confidence and fluency she doesn't quite share. The fear does not announce itself dramatically. It appears as a question left unspoken. Am I still needed? Am I still visible? For some men her age, this fear gathers around work, status, relevance, being replaced by cheaper or faster alternatives, professional identity, wobbles. Recognition becomes harder to secure. For some women, the fear moves socially. Invitations thin. Attention shifts. Visibility fades in small ways that are easy to dismiss but hard to ignore. In the Malaysian, Asian and Chinese environments, Cheryl knows well, health and decline were rarely discussed openly. One managed quietly. One did not complain. Worry was private, contained, often unnamed. In Australia, concern is spoken more directly. Preventative care, monitoring, conversations about risk, aging happen earlier and much more openly. Awareness increases, and with it, anxiety. Cheryl notices that recognition pulls at her. Praise steadies her. Being overlooked unsettles her. She does not condemn this. She simply begins to see it. The shift is subtle. She practices valuing understanding over attention, contribution over acknowledgement. She continues to act well, whether noticed or not. The fear does not vanish, but it loosens its grip. Relevance is no longer something to chase. What remains is a quieter confidence, not built on being seen, but on knowing what one is doing right now and why. Mary Lin is 65. She notices that fewer people ask her opinion now. Conversations move around her rather than towards her. In shops, in family gatherings, in public spaces. Her presence registers less clearly than it once did. At first, this felt like loss. She had spent decades being useful, organizing, smoothing, anticipating what others needed. When that usefulness faded, something else faded with it. Over time, a quieter adjustment took place. Without quite deciding to, Mary Lin stopped competing for attention. She began to measure her days by whether they were lived carefully rather than whether they were noticed. The need to be seen softens. A steadier sense of self took its place. Wei Chong is 65. Most of the large choices are already made. Work, family, place. The shape of his life no longer feels open in the way it once did. What remains is a gentle but persistent question, not sharp enough to disturb sleep. not heavy enough to name as a crisis. Simply this: what was it all for? The answers that once satisfied him no longer lack. Achievement feels finished. Explanation feels thin. The wish for a final accounting begins to fade under its own weight. Gradually, the question loosens. Meaning no longer needs to be gathered or defended. It simplifies. It moves closer to how each day is met, how attention is held, how little needs to be carried. Let meaning simplify. Nothing resolves, nothing needs to. Meaning becomes smaller, nearer, and easier to live with. No longer a conclusion to reach, but a way of standing in what remains of life. Aileen is 75. She no longer goes far. The world has contracted to familiar routes, familiar rooms, familiar faces. What once felt like possibility now feels like boundary. At first, this shrinking world felt like deprivation. But something unexpected happened alongside it. As the outer range narrowed, attention turned inward. Memory, reflection, and quiet awareness took up more space. The world did not expand again, but depth replaced breadth. Life became less about movement and more about presence. What was lost in reach was partly recovered in being here. Thomas worries about becoming a burden. He moves carefully now, measuring effort, apologizing more than necessary. Help, when offered, is accepted reluctantly. Independence has long been a part of how he understands dignity. Over time, this stance becomes tiring to him, always managing appearances, always trying not to need too much. Gradually, another understanding emerges, that needing others does not erase self-worth. Accepting interdependence, accepting help becomes less about failure and more about participation. Interdependence, once resisted, begins to feel natural, not a loss of dignity, but a shared condition. Thank you very much. For those who want to do some follow-up, these are available to see on YouTube. And what you'll see now is the scriptural resonances with each of the different topics. If you want to do a more traditional, canonical framework, you can pause and investigate, read those if you wish to, for those who have a bookish mindset. Good. So, hope you could relate to a lot of that. It was designed for you as an audience while I was in Australia, making those illustrations and the stories in script, and then bringing it here to share with you. The YouTube title is Trouble and Strife. It'll be easy for you afterwards to follow where these are, because I'll show you my YouTube channel. Let me quickly show you what I mean by that. So when you go to this YouTube channel, all of the talks you'll be able to access. Just you go to the videos and you can scroll down and you'll recognize the picture like this one, and you can just watch it. But there are other language subtitled ones as well, so you can just go down until you find which one. Yeah, page by page. Okay. And the other 5 talks, and there's more as well. You'll be able to watch if you want to. But Trouble and Strife is the title, in answer to your question. So when I do a guided meditation during this workshop, I won't be giving you so much a technique. You'll be following along the mood of the previous talk, so that you can help. It's a basically reflective exercise, reflective mindfulness, like this. So also, if you have a main technique that you practice, if you're a nose watcher or a belly watcher, fine. If you're a body scanner, if you're a metta practitioner, you can just sit in your comfortable meditation and just overhear the reflections. It won't interfere with you. And there's no need to do painful knee crunching, ankle crunching, this kind of thing. Particularly, you don't need to. If you could just sit yourself comfortably upright, not falling asleep in there. But if you are exhausted and you nod off, it's not a big deal either. It seems to happen when most people go on retreat the first time and they hit the floor or the bed. We live very exhausted and stressed lives, overworking, so it's not unusual that people just need a bit of battery recharging. It's quite normal. All of my devices are the same. I've been talking to them all night long and giving them electricity. Come on, wake up, wake up. They're like little children. I've got about 12 little children there. Go on, eat up, eat your electricity. Whoops. And they'll come back on again. Yep. All right, if we're all sitting comfortably, then I'll begin. We've listened to many different stories, different ages, different occupations, different countries and cultures, different worries, And yet, perhaps you've noticed they were all expressions of the same human heart. So rather than trying to solve every problem this morning, let us simply learn to hold the heart a little more gently. So please find a comfortable posture. Allow the spine to become naturally upright. Rest the hands comfortably. If it feels comfortable, allow the eyes to close. Feel the simple fact of sitting, the weight of the body, the points of contact, the feet upon the floor or upon the other legs, the hands resting quietly. Nothing to achieve, nothing to fix. And for these next few minutes, there is nowhere else you need to be. Now become aware of breathing. No special breathing, no super deep breathing, just the natural breath. Breathing in, knowing you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing you're breathing out. Again and again. Allow the breath to become your home. And whenever your mind wanders, simply come back patiently, kindly, without criticism. Just another beginning. As the breathing settles, notice the mind beginning to quiet, like muddy water left undisturbed. Clarity gradually appears without force. Now notice something very ordinary. The mind measures, it compares, it evaluates, it comments. Just watch it. Not because measuring is wrong, simply because it is happening. Perhaps the mind says, I'm doing well. I'm not doing well. My meditation is better today. My meditation was better yesterday. Even here, the measuring mind appears. Smile gently. See if you can simply notice it without believing it, without fighting it. Just that there is measuring. Maybe bring to mind Daniel, the young man who said, nothing is wrong, but something feels off. Perhaps you've known that feeling. Everything is functioning, life is continuing, but something inside says, I'm falling behind. If that feeling has ever visited you, simply acknowledge it. No need to analyze, just recognize. This too is part of being human. Now gently ask yourself, falling behind whom? Falling behind what? And compared with whose timetable? Who's measuring? Notice that the measuring mind rarely compares us with real reality. It compares us with imaginations. Return once more to the breathing. Breathing in, breathing out. Now think of that Lee Wen. She believed that if only the accounting numbers changed, she would finally feel secure. Have you ever done the same? If only I earned a little more. If only I lost a little weight. If only people appreciated me. If only. Notice how the mind postpones peace, as if happiness is always waiting just beyond the next achievement. Very gently ask, what have I been asking to tell me who I am? Have I been asking money to tell me who I am? Have I been asking success? Have I been asking health? Have I been asking recognition? Have I been asking relationships? Observe quietly, no judgment, just honesty. Now imagine placing all those labels down beside you. Your occupation, your age, your achievements, your disappointments, your bank balance, your reputation. Just leave them there for just a few minutes. Without them, what remains? Simply breathing, simply knowing, simply being alive. Return again to the breath. Now remember Ming. Two people living together yet drifting apart. Relationship fatigue. Notice the relationships in your own life. Not with blame, not with regret. Simply ask, where could I be a little more present? A little more curious? A little less hurried? Sometimes healing begins with one genuine question, one uninterrupted conversation, one evening without reaching for the phone. Let that possibility rest quietly in the heart. Now think of Cheryl Tan, that fear of becoming invisible. Perhaps this fear belongs not only to middle-aged people. Perhaps we all wonder, do I matter? Am I seen? Am I enough? Notice the longing. Hold it gently, that longing. Ask another question. If nobody applauded me, could I still quietly do what is wholesome? Could kindness still be worthwhile? Could generosity still matter? Imagine performing one beautiful action that nobody notices. Feel the quiet freedom inside that. Now bring to mind Mary Lin. She stopped measuring whether she was noticed. She began measuring whether she had lived carefully. As you breathe, consider, what would today have looked like if my only task had been to live carefully? Not perfectly, just carefully. Now think of Thomas, the one who found it difficult to receive help as an elderly person. Notice where pride appears. Notice where fear appears. Notice where independence has become exhaustion. Can you also soften just a little? Can you allow yourself to belong to the human family where everyone sometimes gives and everyone sometimes receives? Now let all the stories fade. Daniel's story, Lee Wen's, Ming, Cheryl, Mary Lin and Thomas. Notice that each one was really pointing towards the same place, not out there, in here. The measuring mind, the comparing mind, the anxious mind, the hopeful mind, simply arising and passing. Now rest with one awareness itself. Rest with awareness itself. The breath comes, the breath goes, thoughts arise, thoughts pass, feelings arise, feelings pass. Success arises, failure arises, youth arises, old age arises, praise arises, blame arises, gain, loss, everything changes. Awareness simply knows. Now simply repeat, may I stop measuring myself against impossible standards. May I become a little kinder towards this heart. May I learn to trust this moment. May I cultivate wisdom instead of comparison. May I find enoughness here and now. Now allow those wishes to expand. Think of everyone in this hall, every one of them carrying invisible burdens, every one of them trying to find happiness, every one of them wanting to feel enough. May they be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be free from all unnecessary comparison. May they discover in their own quiet confidence. Now widen it still further. Family, friends, people you find difficult, people you've never met, people in every country, young, old, successful, struggling, healthy, ill. May all beings discover that they do not need to become someone else before they deserve peace. Return once more to the simple rhythm of breathing. The simple rhythm of breathing. So simple. Nothing missing. Nothing extra. Just this breath. This moment. This life. Become aware once again of the body sitting here. The sounds in the room. The people practicing beside you. Take 3 slow, gentle breaths. Breathing in. Breathing out. Again. Once more. When you're ready, begin to move the fingers. Move the toes. Gently open the eyes. Later, when you leave, don't try to become a different person. Simply carry a slightly lighter heart. Measure a little less. Notice a little more. Wherever you find yourself on the journey, meet that place with wisdom, kindness, and patience. May all be well. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good. Hope you enjoyed that. This is your captain speaking. Coming into land, an altitude of several thousand feet. Let's have a little share reflection, get to know each other a bit better as well. But I'll give you some help along the way. Could I just say a few things? Sorry. Please. I'll just do the reflective session. Is that okay? Before we begin the Q&A, here are a few questions that you might like to reflect on. There are no right and wrong answers. It's reflection. Feel free to ask a question, share a personal experience, or simply tell us which part of the talk stayed with you. Which of the people in these stories did you recognize most in yourself, and why? Which of the people in these stories did you recognize most in yourself, and why was that? Or have you ever had that feeling that Daniel, the younger one, described of nothing's actually wrong, but somehow you still feel like you're falling behind other people? If you find yourself nodding, perhaps you could share a little bit about that. Is there somewhere in your life where you've been asking success, money, or achievement to tell you who you are? Those are some of the reflections. Which measuring habit do you think creates the most unnecessary suffering in your own life as well? So those are some reflection prompts. Have a little explore. Don't be shy. It's ice-breaking time. It's good to help other people. What relationship in your life might benefit, not from a dramatic solution, but 10 more minutes of genuine attention instead of going straight to the television, like with Ming, having relationship fatigue. 10 more minutes of genuine attention rather than just tuning out or staying at work because it's too complicated. Presence. Have you ever worried that you're becoming less visible, less relevant, or somehow being left behind as life changes? Feel free to share. It's great to break the ice. I'd really like to hear you reflecting, opening up. Thank you.
Okay, Bhante, that was a fantastic 7 short story. I should use the Academy Award winner.
7 shots of what?
Yeah, very short, very nice.
Thank you.
It touches me across the age, starting from a young boy from the Australian, right to the old lady on the 70s today. But what captured me most is this gentleman here by the name of Wei Chong. Okay? That's around my age circle. Yeah, I find that what he says is very true, because the word they use is that little needs to be carried. That was a very profound word that he says. My view when he says the little words to be carried, I feel that I'm the type of person. I feel that very small things that touches me, I need to look into it. I need to be like clarity. I need to find that things must be solved fast. Although it's not urgent in my family perspective, but I need to be done fast. If not done fast, it'll carry me down to the depression side, more worries. And next morning when I wake up, like I use the word, the kickoff starts, the worry comes in again. Well, it's not settled. Things might get worse. It built in the mind. So I'm very happy that the introduction side here, you will help us out to clear the wire tangles around the mind. The next question is, what will I get from this class here? I think that the keyword here is to rewire myself, that have been tangling it, and I sincerely look forward to retangle it. That's what I'm working on. That no way to find someone that able to understand the feelings, especially when you just walk into any Mr. Tom, Dick, and Harry. Where there's a lot of openness here. I think that the takeaway from here will be very useful for me. And it's a big sacrifice to Saturday, Sunday, but it's going to be worthwhile to this. I mean, this is worthwhile to take away from here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you.
Yes.
So he was saying about how to follow up. On the YouTubes, they also, like if you wanted to see the story of Wei Chong again, when you go finally get the English one, I'm just going to go scroll down and find it. You can actually go to the story of Wei Chong, because there's a kind of index, drop down index. And then if you wanted to hear a particular piece again, so here's the English one. Doesn't say any subs, no Vietnamese or Chinese or something subs. Is that what you can do? It's kind of indexed. So you can press this more, and then you can go down in this. But this is what I want to show. So every different part of it, Lee Wen, that should say, Wei Ming, and then all the different parts, Cheryl Tan, Mary Lin, Wei Chong. So then you can click on this, and it will jump to that section. And then you can kind of follow up and watch it again. It should do anyway. More or less, it will jump to there. There you go. So then it jumps to this section. And then you can, the different parts of the Wei Chong story. Here, like that life was largely already done, the big decisions already made, but then this question, what was it all for? That was the big theme there. That the old answers, life is suffering, or what does that mean? These big solutions, they just fall apart sometimes, and you're left with a kind of emptiness. And the questions can loosen, and the meaning becomes much more smaller and simpler sometimes. So then the other ones are there. That's a way of following through. If you found something was really on the button, really touched you, you can revisit it in this way. Or hopefully that will be a use as well. Thank you very much for sharing as well. Is there anyone else who resonated with one part or another part of the talk that similarly, like a particular story that you or your family or your associates, you see that, and you're living through them, or you see it through their eyes, as it were. It's an open floor. Please, microphone, there you go. I won't attempt your name. There you go. Thank you so much, sister.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning.
Good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dharma. My name is Gina. I'm all the way from KL. Yeah. First and foremost, Bhante, I'm so impressed with the visuals and the translations. It's so well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, the translations are good, are they? I didn't know this. This is what I'm still trying to figure it out if they're good or not.
But I will later on ask you how you do it. Yeah, please give me the
Okay,
name
yeah,
of the app.
I can show you that because the pictures.
Yeah, I'd like to know how you turn it into this kind of
yeah. No,
visual effects.
Here. So this website is called imagine.art. It's AI art. So essentially what I did was to create the photos by describing I would describe what image I wanted. Oops, hold on. I would describe what image I wanted, and I would give pictures of me, pictures of the person, and a picture of the place, like the coffee shop in Ipoh. And then I would ask it to assemble them all together.
Is it paid? Do you pay for it?
Yes, I do. However, I do have a long background in illustration. So for example, you could create an image like this image here, and then having created that image, there's still one I'm talking about, you could put it in and say, make it look like a pencil drawing, make it look like a watercolor drawing. But first of all, you make the image. Or in this case, for example, which you'll see this story, is I had one photograph of me within an apartment, but face on, and I said to it, take the ceiling view down and show it after a fire, because that's part of the story. And then gradually, like less and less and less, so that I could show it like gradually getting more damaged. So there's lots of tricky things like that you can do. And then then I download them. I spent a month writing the scripts for 10 talks. And I had already decided that the humanistic approach for is not top down, telling people this is the 5 and the 7, this and the 8. No, I've done that before. And that the idea of looking at the people who you're talking with and then researching what are the stresses of those age groups and that cultural type of people, and then make people's story fit that. So I wrote the script first as an audio and recorded it as an audio, and then I made the images, and then I used a video editing. So it was basically an long MP3 put into a video editing, and then I dropped the pictures in one by one. But I made all the pictures first, and then I put them in. And then you can kind of move around one picture for quite a while. You don't have to actually animate it. What was the other bit of the question? You said, like, how did you make it? And then what was the other bit?
I said I'm so super impressed.
Thank you.
So much.
No, and that was right. The other one was the
translation.
Translation is
Subtitles.
done using that. I mean, I really want to share this because I had a big headache on my hands when I was trying to get the script and put it into ChatGPT and then put it out as this and then trying to use that, and it was all like wrongly lined up. And I was literally having like a migraine for like 24 hours. Like, how am I going to do this? And then you try 8 times and it's still not matching up. You know? It's a very complicated, like you can see people in the 1970s at what a stress life they had, like trying to get the number of the seconds right, all this stuff down here. Like at what second does it say what and all that, you know? So the solution, as far as I can tell, my solution anyway, is this app here called Capwing. So I'm not, this is no some sponsorship, I'm just literally compassion for people who are trying to make subtitles. Capwing. So, because once you have your editing program, for me it's iMovie, and I would put my MP3 in of the whole talk, like for 30 minutes, and then I would put all of the titles and all of the pictures in and finish that, and I would put that out as something called an MP4, which is what I'm playing. This is an MP4. It's just a video type. So once I wanted to make subtitles in a foreign language, I drag and drop that into here. So I just start a new one. I would be saying, why doesn't it have it? Normally has it here. because I'm not signed in. Anyway, I would drag and drop it into this, and then you'll go. It recognizes already that the English language is the main medium. It listens, it can see the audio, it can hear it, and it recognizes it. So this one, for example. So I just say, start a new folder, drag my MP4 in, bloom, put it in, and then choose the language. So the original language it recognizes is English, and then you can translate that to any of many languages. And I would just click on that, and you only wait a few minutes, and there's all in Mandarin. And then you just export the project. And then what I've been doing is sending it to people in China, and say, or at Nanjing University, for example, and they're saying it's pretty good, but there's a few bits that don't make sense, and they can also then send me the correction. And as time goes on, I'll correct the glitches. There's a few glitches. Like even in Sinhalese, they go, oh, yeah, it's good. It's about 85, 90%, but a few words. So I'll improve those. But that's basically how it's done. So it exports it as an MP4 with the subtitles that you saw. And then I'll just upload that to YouTube and then put it out there. And my YouTubes have gone like this.
Wow.
Because all these, I just did one Tamil one. I thought, oh, well, no, Tamil, I'll just do it. And then that got 170 views in 2 days or something. I was like, well, I'll do more Tamil.
I think Bhante deserves a big round of applause for his effort for us.
Thank you very, very much. Bhante. It gives me great pleasure to be able to do both things. I want to show something else, which was that I was struggling for a long time following the Burmese method. So I was trained in the Burmese and the Thai method. So everything was, Satipatthana and the 5 this and the 6 that and the 7 that other. So then I saw Ajahn Brahm, and I realized that he had managed to do something that's extremely difficult to do, which was to bring creativity into it, which already just doing that breaks all the rules. You're not like no creativity, because for many hundreds of years, the monks have been the hard drives of the Tipitaka. That's the Buddhist teaching. So we're not allowed to add anything or take anything away. So, I recognized that he had figured out a way, just by his own way of making very, very interesting talks. And I was realizing that he's done it. He's managed to do it. And he's teaching Dharma, and people are enjoying it, and they're learning, and he's teaching meditation. So it's a very sort of genius thing he's managed to do. But what about the rest of us? How can we follow? The Burmese thing is very easy to copy because everybody does the same thing, but it becomes dry. And if you're not, there's the big danger that we'll lose the next generation because it's of an old medieval format, and they're now on Instagram and everything. So I took 10 years of Ajahn Brahm's talks, getting the transcription from YouTube, I used about 7 talks over 10 years. And I put them in AI, and I said to it, look for a pattern so that I can reverse engineer his talks and just sort of get a rough idea about how can you do that. So I figured out, it together and me, we figured out there is a sort of pattern, and I used that to create not so much the talk that you've seen just now, but the following 8 or 9 followed a sort of format, which is that it basically went, that Ajahn Brahm basically tells a story, and then he gives it a reflection, or helps you reflection like we were just doing, and then he gives a humor, a joke or a story or something like that, and then he caps it off with a sort of insight. This is the Dharma law at work. And then he does the same thing again, a story, and then he gives a tactic to go home with, and then he does another reflection, and then another humor. This kind of 8 gives this kind of thing. It's very jolly and it moves along, and he's got new material and another material, another thing, and it keeps sort of changing the style, and therefore it's very refreshing. You don't sort of fall asleep, like with the same old idea going round and round. So that was a very big part of figuring out how to do this. I'll just see if there's one I can show you. Here's the actual thing. Where's the... I'll dig it out anyway. Strength Talk 11. Yeah, but if you got that, if you followed what I was that's actually there's another one I could show you. Talk 18. So yeah, those were the big breakthroughs. But the fact, I've got a background as an illustrator. I used to work for the Sydney Morning Herald and major magazines and things like that. So I knew that, possibly if I could bring those things together, it could have a good way to keep people interested. New people, it's attractive. And if it's conforms to the Dharma enough that it's not seen as kind of naughty to do it, then all right. So there were many different parts of this. Like I looked at the different, like this was one talk called "Does Life Suck?" And I analyzed all the different parts of it as it went through. And then as I did it, I started creating like an artist's palette of the different things. This is not very clear for some reason. It's a bit fuzzy. It's a bit fuzzy, but yeah. All of these different, as I heard him doing a technique, like telling a story about the Second World War, I would make a palette box. And then, there was a story where Ajahn Chah said, don't let the water shake, put the cup down and let go of it, or the two bricks, or, this. So those were personal insight stories, or he would start off with a really amazing thing. So as that happened, I carried on making these things. Sometimes it's the message, sometimes it's positivity, positive psychology, reframing. Someone's looking at things in this way, and if they looked that way, it would be all positive, and so on and so on. Many hundred, even like up to about 140 things. And I realized that this I could use as a palette to make my own talks, but I didn't have a simple format, because even if you do it once, it's like, oh, I don't know if I can do that again. Whereas to have a pattern, a format that you can repeat. And it was taking me ages to figure out that kind of thing, like this. I wasn't sure, like, if it was something like this that he had, like he told the message, and then he told an insight. And I was looking at the amount of times that he did each part, how many times there was reflection. There were 20 reflections, like that kind of thing. So this was all leading up to me figuring out this kind of formula. I'll try and show you one. Talk 18 is a good, just excuse me a moment, I'll find it. And you'll see talk 18 tomorrow, for example. Oh, weird. I don't know why it's not finding it. So it might be the slow connection. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if this opens up, all right. So that when I told you there were these four. So so you're gonna, yeah. Again, it's a bit fuzzy. So there's different things and there are different functions. So you have a story, and that's to hook people in. You have a reflection, and this lets people get depth into their own life, like apply it to their own life. Humor gives a little breather and lets people keep it light and keeps people engaged and not getting bored or falling asleep. The insight gives it deeper meaning, so you see a bigger lesson or deeper view. So what I said like before was like, first there was a story, second there was a reflection, there was a human, there was an insight. So this block of 4, so you'll see this tomorrow. So the story is the Tower of the Rich, is a story, and you'll see it, and it all has illustrations to it. And then reflection based on this, what is wealth without permanence? In a world where everything's impermanent, what does wealth mean? And then humor, this was a joke thing where some Filipinos were supposed to write a promissory note. And they came to me and they said they'd given them a I promise sorry note. It's just like a funny little thing. And then that the insight is that suffering is inevitable. You can't avoid it. You have to go through it. Something like that. So that's a block. And then the next block was, you're going to wish you didn't ask me that question. How did I do it now? So like the story, which is from the suttas, it's a handful of salt versus putting salt in a drinking vessel and putting a salt in a lake. There's an analogy. And then tactics to go home with. And then a reflection that you notice small supports and gratitude. And then there's a humor, the order of bikinis. That is a funny joke there. You'll see that again. So that, as a row, can just get repeated 4 times, and it doesn't feel like repetition, and it more or less comes over with different stories and different humor and different insights and different reflections. And that's the way, and only at the end, there's much more metaphors and a message to go home with, and one humor. So that's sort of a pattern that can be repeated. You could write 50 talks like that, and they would be very comfortable, because there's enough depth, it gives you enough to think about. It is the Dharma, it's got enough Dharma in, but there's enough humor, so it refreshes up your mind. It's not like too heavy. AI was telling me that. He said, like, I gave a script and he said, no, it's too much insight. You're doing insight. Like, I'm used to doing insight. That's what I was taught. No. You should refresh it like this. Yeah. And before all of this, I would decide together with AI on a spine. No, start with a spine. So it might be that this talk is on suffering. I think the theme of this one is suffering. It's the noble truth of surfing. So it's actually, the topic is suffering. So you basically have 4 main key points, that it moves from this main point to this main point to this main point, that main point. And then you have these go along from it. So it's like the center of a building. It's the main scaffolding. So that was the starting point. No, I mean, mind mapping is something else, where you grow it organically. You go by association. This was starting off with the structure, and then even then I was thinking, I've got to think up a humor about suffering, or I'd have to even research on the internet. Like the one that you saw was the most serious one. The other ones have a lot more like comic, and I'd go to stand-ups or old Reader's Digest, humor section or stuff, and just research, and then bring it back in, or suttas, or my own personal stories. I was just remembering something, that was funny, that happened, when we were working on that project, and blah, 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 and bring it and put it in and see how it looks. And then make the AI art to show it. Particularly in many of the stories, I had no camera at that time. There was the old days, you have to go to Kodak, get it developed. Now you could actually make, like as if there was a camera there. The buildings are still there, and you can get pictures of the people. Like when I was at school, we found there was a tunnel under the school, so that we didn't have any cameras or anything. But now I could put get pictures of the school and get AI to make, like the tunnel. And so you'll see that over these next remaining 4 talks, and you can see the other ones from internet, from YouTube. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah, Bhante.
Sorry, but it's a long answer.
It's okay. Bhante, I noticed that the stories didn't touch on parenting, because parenting is a very challenging task in modern days. our enemy is actually the internet or the social media or the AI. But yet these tools are such necessary evil today. So for myself, I always find that I have to fight with internet for my son's attention. And then when you try to tell him something, he can even quote, oh, this influencer said this. And these influencers, they are so famous worldwide. They are super rich. Of course, they drive fancy cars. They have got whatever that you can mention, you know. So that image is there. So my son said, Andrew Tate, he's this. He said this. No, Mom, you said A? No, Andrew Tate said this. I think I'll follow Andrew Tate because he's more successful, he's more influential. But if I dig in further, this guy is not living a very virtuous life. In fact, he was in jail for some kind of human trafficking. Yep, Andrew Tate and his brother. However, my son adores him and a few other influences. So, Bhante, can you please touch on how to navigate these very challenging parenting times? And I see it getting even worse as we progress along, especially now that my son has reached the age of 18. His lifestyle has totally changed since he entered college. So there's a lot of other peer influences. For example, Bhante, before college, he's happily buying second-hand clothes. You know, there's thrift store in KL. So a pair of pants is like under 30, it's fine. A pair of shoes is under 30. They are all nice items from Japan. So a week into the college, totally different. Now it's Nike, it's Adidas, it's 300 ringgit and above, 500 ringgit and above. You know, so there's this tug of war going on. And I find it very, very stressful. So Bhante, if you can touch on that, how we can also at the same time be kind to ourselves, also to accept this kind of teenage, especially if they come with preconditions such as ADD, ADHD, ODD, you know, all these funny acronyms that my son certainly falls into some of the spectrum. And many of the children do fall into this huge spectrum. So yeah, Bhante, appreciate your input. Thank you.
This question came up when I was giving a talk in Vihara Brickfields. So if you wouldn't excuse me, sister, I'll slightly repeat that answer. You don't mind? Just I want to show you something. I created this while I was working with Filipino children, and they were aged 12 to 17 for 5 years. So they were like those. So they would have me for a year, and then the next year, and then the next year, and the next year. And because I only want to show you it because.
Hi, good morning. So, well.
No, it doesn't matter. There are some sound effects with it, but it's not important. What I want to show you is. And this is also, I can make this available. I can give you the link to access this. So this part of it. So I was asked to teach Dharma in the classroom. This was a school that was created in the largely Catholic Philippines by a Chinese Pure Land temple. Made, you know, there were traders over the 100 years, you know, that come down and settled there. So They've made a temple and they've made a school. So, but Filipino, Christian and so on, children can still go there. Just a bit of background. So it's 1,000 kids school. It's a large school. 4 years ago, five years ago now, is that there will be books on this problem. You won't be alone. Clearly, there's another person here who has identical problem that you're identifying. Is that these bad influences? That's actually in the suttas. The Sigala Ovada Sutta clearly defines what's meant by like good company, bad company, and there's a very clear list about why. So it's the framework is within the Dharma, in the Sigala Ovada particularly. That's like, I don't know, have you come across that, the Sigala Ovada? That's a very good, it's about, it's a very, very big network of showing, like wine, alcohol, what happens with alcohol, what happens with fighting, what happens with hanging out late at night, and so on, gambling, reasons, what consequences are likely to happen. So I'd really recommend that as a study anyway in itself. So, I mean, I think one of the worst things you can do is to give up, is either that a father or a mother just throws their hands up and says, I don't know, like, do what you want to do, is just to let the kids totally run free. And I think no matter if you're not being paid, doesn't it seem they are paying attention to your discipline, you are still having a discipline, you're giving them guidelines, rather than just do what you want to do, the ultra-liberal approach, or ultra-severe is just punishment, because neither of these two really work, but an authoritative approach, which is remaining consistent. It's in the nature of teenagers to push against, but they want to find where is the wall, where are the limits of their power, what's realistic for them to be able to do and not do. But if you're consistent, just that helps a lot. Even if they rebel and aren't obedient and they go backwards and forwards over the line, at least they're finding that the line stays steady. One of the worst things is also moving walls. Yes, you can. No, you can't. Oh, okay, all right, you can. Like that. And point out the dangers of some things like sexually transmitted diseases, or drinking and driving, or a police record for violence, or the actual effects of drugs on people, and the effect of dropping out, and the ability to be able to develop skills, and what that means, and what the results of that are. So they can get Nike, they can buy some Nikes, but if they do this skill set and that skill set, there are some reflections anyway. But I mean, you're welcome also to take this, because I think the workbooks, if you can get people down on it, say yes, you can have some gaming, but you have to also do you also have to work on the gaming workbook and timing it. So letting also, you can't. I think if you try to control teenagers too much, you'll get rebellion. But if you negotiate with them and say, I want you to control your life, and I want you to show me your planning, and then once they're planning pleasure responsibly, planning work responsibly, they're setting up those good executive functioning. Could you, sorry. Yeah, there you go.
Bhante, these workbooks are available? You are making it?
Yeah, no, I'm making them available. I mean, I distribute this out to a very small number of people. Like I just share it with you, and you can just click on it and open it as part of my. You're a part of my class essentially.
Okay, and then this workbook is for the teenage to open and do it.
Yeah, I'll show you. So, but if you want to go through the conventional route, you just go to.
Can we have a look at the gaming?
Yeah, that was a bit. Click on it. Harbinger. The publisher is called Harbinger, and they have this instant help book series. But if you search the publisher Harbinger, Harbinger, then going on. You'll see that there's like it's always basically CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive, that means that it's very Buddhist. It means that you can reprogram your behavior. You can find out how you're behaving and you can slightly change it. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy does. So in this way, and there's always homework. It's always not just talking about me and my problems. It's like, okay, this is what you have to go and do. And through investigating your behavior, you will, like for you to do, put a check in the column that shows how often you play each type of game. A puzzle, a strategy game, first-person shooters, sports or racing games, educational, simulation game. Now, la 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 la. So it's like, it's not just do or don't or bad, punish or something. It's actually getting them to review and reflect and analyze and get to understand what it is that they are doing and how it fits in. So estimate how many minutes you spend on each of the following activities. Homework on computer or screen, on des ordres, playing video games, and it gets them to be honest with themselves, and it just doesn't become this random habit where they disappear into a void and just go, blah, 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 and then fall asleep at 4 a.m. and then, start all over again. Is that they actually get reflection on their habits clearly. Streaming, listening to music, social media, surfing the internet. So, and this is a 261-page book, just this one. So I don't know. And I would often do these myself as well. I'd go off to a Starbucks and go, force myself to do it, and not just that'd be the laziest thing, wouldn't it? And I'm going to go back and watch Netflix now and just play in my room or something. But this is good. Like on a scale from 1 to 10, rate how much playing video games has helped you better understand and use your la skills, executive functioning skills. Planning, how much does it really make you planning? It depends if it's just like kill. So like they're going to have to admit, not really. 1, working memory, organization. So it builds up a reflection about how useful is this. Yeah,
very helpful.
For me, within my sessions thing, this was, of all that we did, it was, I thought it was going to go somewhere else. It was basically 20% of the class. Yeah. So they would have 8 minutes of the Buddhist series, 8 minutes of the teen workbooks, 8 minutes of arete is like citizenship skills, how to be a good citizen, made by the government. So it's made by the government. And then Buddha teaching section, those are teen books written by Buddhist teenagers, for Buddhist teenagers. They're like Buddha, blue jean Buddha, books like that, And then guided meditation. So just to contextualize how it fitted in with what I was doing. I think it's good to have, like this was a little bit of honey with the medicine, kind of the Buddha series is great, but it's like cinema conditions and, they get to watch 8 minutes and they love it with all of the drama, very dramatic. It's very, very like poison porridge stories and plots and the jealous auntie and the plot by the cousin. And, it's very, very, they're like, wow. They love it, all hanging on the edge of their seats, kind of cliffhangers. They loved it. They really, really enjoyed it. Because it's also escapist. It's nice to have a bit of escapism, particularly into the old world, the old, melodramatic sort of kings and beautiful queens and kings and. So then this was like real stuff. It's real world. But actually, I've got a problem with my bullying, or I've got a problem with my gaming, or my parents are divorcing, or whatever it was that they're going through. Then they could face what they're into. And then, Buddha teaching, like, there are books like these ones, like Buddha in Your Backpack, Buddha's Everyday Buddhism for Teens, Blue Jean Buddha. They're all basically Buddhist guides for teens. I imagine now there are even more. This was at that time, like 2020, 2 that I kind of created all this. There's a Thich Nhat Hanh book there, How Not to Be a Hot Mess, like Zen Teen. And then I made these ones, 5 Precepts Workbook for Teens, Eightfold Path Workbook for Teens, sort of. But if I give you the link to this, anyone else who wants that would be able to WhatsApp or there is a WhatsApp group for this retreat, isn't it? Okay, well I'll put this available in there, so you better follow up. Is that it? Sorry, I thought you were going to make another point. So that might be a hurry along thing. So we're at 5 to 11. We could take a little break. If we just take a look at the schedule. I think, yeah, so the Q&A was just going to take us up to sort of lunch, actually. We can have a break now, and if you want to run around in the playground. Now the rain stopped. No, enjoy. So are there any more cues or comments? Because I've been blaring on quite a bit. There's a, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, my friend.
Good morning, Bhante.
Good morning, sister.
Everybody. My name is Natalie. I kind of noticed that Bhante, you arrange your talks.
Can you speak into the point the microphone in your mouth? There you go.
I noticed that you arrange your talks from youth to old age.
Yeah, only this one.
Yeah, the challenges that was faced through the ages. And I think I went through almost all the challenges that was shown. And now I'm back to the first one, waving. You know, everything looks like it's okay. And yet, there's something missing.
Right.
But I don't know why.
Yeah.
You know?
Sometimes I think that's just life. It is also just realizing that when you also look around. I mean, there's people who are dealing with major problems from morning till night, and there's some people who reach the stabilization. And then it's also where you can use your stability to help others get to stability. So that's also part of it before looking for anything super more. Sometimes it's just realizing I'm comfortable, you know, and actually that's a very special thing, not to take it for granted. Yeah, that was like my visiting the Philippines. I used to complain all the time about England until I got to the Philippines. Like, my God, I never realized we had shoes. I never thought twice that we had shoes. And then you see these kids and their feet are ripped up because they have wrong size old shoes or no shoes. They're trying to walk to school 2 miles. I was like, what have I been complaining about? Or like they have a commercial medical system. You have to pay, and they're already in poverty. We had everything for free. You just go to the doctors, you go to the chemist, you don't think twice. You just get your medicines because they've got a national health service, or have had. So, but that feeling of something's missing. I think also sometimes when you meditate and get into Dharma groups, and then you find a way to get deeper, and that can be with the right company, a good friend, or like we're going to be doing the art thera. That's also helpful for that kind of thing. Both to be a friend to other people, but also to explore and find ways to go a bit deeper. Sometimes people get lost in small things. No, please respond. I mean, how do you feel about some of those responses?
I think those are all great answers, but it's just that there are days when you wake up, you feel full. There are days when you wake up, you feel half, and there are days when you wake up and you feel empty, you know.
Yeah.
And somehow you don't know why.
Yeah. This is why it's also good to pay attention on these kind of things, that you realize how, if you look at just at the regular world, it looks like everyone's having fun, everyone's happy, everyone's successful, everyone else. Yeah. And then you go, why am I like this? But that's the problem with the sort of superficial appearance of the world, is everybody's playing at being, you know, also impressing, giving out a very impressive, self-sufficient, successful image. And actually this is why it's very important to, even if you do a little bit of counseling, go on a basic beginner's course, you see how everyone looks like that, but very soon you realize what's behind the screens is that people are you can have the most glamorous looking family, but actually, they've got depression, they've got crisis, they've got all anxieties, they wouldn't be all of these books, all of those problems, unless that was the case. I really thought, look, Filipino kids, they're so smart, they're so well behaved, but then you realize that when they are able to express their real experience, this is what's meant by dukkha, is that it's universal, is that it's only a very shallow image that makes us look all happy and all easy life. Everyone has a great struggle. Everyone has a great torment. If they're going smooth for a while, it's only soon that there'll be some kind of wave coming. If not them, maybe their sister marries a drug addict, or there's a depression coming nearby, or personality problems nearby. So it's partly that universal, like the Kisa Gautami story that the Buddha opened the lady's eyes to see it's universal. She was very focused on her emptiness or her loss, and then he was saying, try to find a house that doesn't have loss. And she was really thought it'd be easy to find them on until she's learning. Oh God! So sometimes it is like if you man the helpline or something like that, it can also balance up this, where you think, if you're thinking it's only me, then this can balance it up by opening your eyes to other people and more how widespread those kind of problems are. Perhaps that can help. But even these kind of exploring books, they can help you explore like emptiness or low self-esteem or low or depression, or particularly with changing age. With various ages, things change as well. If you have had kids and your sense of identity and self-esteem has been tied to your kids, but then your kids go off and like, who am I without that role? So then you have to find a bigger meaning. So sometimes joining a temple or joining other societies, or travel or pilgrimage, or finding a way to. This will come up in one of these talks. This nice analogy of the salty cup that the Buddha said. Someone was complaining like that, and he said, "Put salt in your cup." And he said, "How's it?" He goes, "Oh, it's really bitter." And he goes, "Now put the same amount of salt in the lake, and then taste some water from the lake." He said, "Yeah, it's fine." So this is by expanding your mind, you can become more capable of absorbing your small problems. That will be in one of the upcoming talks.
Thank you, Bhante.
That's welcome, very welcome. Yeah, remember to speak directly in the thing. It comes out. I will do a video of these sessions so you can review and check back in. But you have to speak into the holy hamster, this little thing here. It's like clinging there just for you. Okay. Great. 11 o'clock. So, would you like to take a leg stretch? You've been sitting on your numb bums for a little while now, so take a break and a walk around. And, welcome to come up and chat if you prefer to talk in private as well. So, thank you very, very much. So let's do a sadhu together, just round it off. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Great, we've got plenty of time ahead for these next 2 days.